last year.
Thank you.
My question would be, is it better now than it was at the beginning of last year?
Sure. I don't know what we get out of trying to compare, a roster before we've played a game with one that finished a season. We're trying to build as competitive a roster as we can, and I think there's a lot of things that go into that. I think we're going to pitch really, really well. I think improved infield defense, and a lot of offensive upside. But to talk about it at this point, I'm not sure it does a lot of good. We're going to get evaluated based on how the season goes, and we understand that.
So clearly, obviously, a year ago you had Devers and Bregman. Now you don't. And how do you feel you can replace that hitting?
Yeah, I don't know that you look to replace one for one, the production of a guy like Rafi or a guy like Alex. But our goal is as a team to win more games. And I think there's a lot of different ways that we can do that, and leaning into pitching and defense is certainly one.
How does where you've ended up payroll-wise compared to expectations and plans at the beginning of the offseason?
Sure. Obviously not going to get into specifics around payroll outside of feeling like we had the resources and the support to put the roster together in a way that we felt like gives us the best chance of competing for a World Series.
Craig, in fairness, the roster's totally different from when you played. You had future Hall of Famers, Pedro Martinez and David Ortiz, and you had the Manny's and future Red Sox Hall of Famer Pedroia. What do fans look at this team now that they can get excited about in your eyes?
Sure. Well, one thing I would say is it'd be really premature to say that there aren't Hall of Famers on our roster right now, right? I think that's exactly why our fans can get excited because we've got young, kind of cornerstone pieces, whether we think about Roman, Cedon, Garrett, and many others. I think there's a group of position players and pitchers that are going to be here for a long time that fans can kind of attach themselves to and watch them develop. And I think that for the most part, the best years of players' careers are still in front of them. So I think there's this really exciting, young, athletic core that's going to be a part of a championship contender for a long time.
You had identified slug as something that you wanted to add at the start of the offseason. You added Contreras, but that is kind of canceled out by the loss of Bregman if you're looking at production there, I guess. Is there enough power on this team, and are there ways to add to it given that most positions are now kind of spoken for?
Sure. So we don't think it's much of a secret. We pursued opportunities to bring in, slug, and when those didn't play out, we kind of looked at other opportunities to improve the team, and that's the thing that we need to work backwards from is how do we put the best team on the field possible. That said, we're talking about a large majority of a team coming back that was a top 10 offensive team in baseball with opportunities for guys to take steps forward because of the age, because of the development in front of them. So I think that there's going to be a slug and power that emerges from this group, but I also think we've got a pretty balanced lineup.
I'm sure you have your own projection system, but you probably also saw that Zips does not project you to have anybody to hit even 20. You had somebody at 25 last year. Mm-hmm. How much attention do you pay to those outside projections? Does it line up with what you have internally? What's the significance of that to you?
Yeah, I don't think we can get overly caught up in public projections. We believe not just in our materials and our tools, but also in our players and our staff. Trevor, right? Like he's going to be back, and we anticipate another full healthy season, and reason to believe that there's even another step forward for him to take, just given that so much of his time here was marred by injuries, and guys like Roman and Willie being healthy for full season. So, look, we may have someone who hits over 20 home runs. We may not. Ultimately, we need to win more games.
How do you look at Casas opening day, that type of stuff, his progress where he is right now? Is he basically a full go with some of these other guys, or is he behind Paul considering everything?
Yeah, I think the focus is still on just him getting completely healthy. He's making a ton of progress. It's a credit to him and to our medical staff. He committed himself, was here all off season, and by all accounts, the work has been great. But I think it would be getting ahead of ourselves to put a timeline on when he's kind of a full go, or when he is participating without any type of restriction. Right now, it's just continuing to ramp up in volume and intensity.
Do you think opening day is doubtful then?
I don't think I'm going to pass judgment either way. I think that there is still plenty of time between now and opening day, but also, I think putting those types of expectations are probably unfair.
And just from a front office perspective, obviously, you guys were kind of grappling with losing Paul at the beginning and shuffling things around. What kind of have you done to maybe change the top end structure with him gone and some other moving pieces?
Sure. We're very fortunate to have really great people in this organization who have contributed when Paul was here, and now in Paul's absence have the opportunity to contribute on an even greater scale. We've been forced in some ways, I suppose, to shuffle some of our leadership group, but also there were opportunities for people to step up when we think about Jake Brummel taking over, for Devin Pearson and Mark Heil in the international space. But I think we have a very strong mix of people who have been in the game for a long time, who've been in this organization, and also those who have brought new perspectives. So I'm really excited about the team that we have in place.
Aside from Otero, have you added anybody to the front office at those upper levels?
No, and we continue to evaluate how to put together the best front office that we can. But I think amplifying the voice of those who are capable of doing more is a really important thing for our organization.
From a flowchart perspective, who oversees that silo now that Paul had?
So in terms of development, I've leaned into that a little bit more, and I think we'll use the next 6 months or so to evaluate. We feel really good about the development group that we have, whether that's Brian Abraham on the minor league side, Chris Stacey on the major league side, and I think the success of player development speaks to that. So I'm excited to lean into that a little bit more, and also to give each of those two and others a louder voice.
At this point, is adding a GM or naming a GM something off the table, or?
I don't know that I would say off the table. I'll continue to evaluate opportunities, but we've been focused this offseason on putting together the best roster we can.
And in terms of lefty relief, outside of Chapman, is that something where you could use some help, or how do you think that can play out?
Yeah, we continue to explore opportunities. We also feel good about the group that we have, and Moran is someone that has been highlighted, someone that we really like coming off a really successful winter ball season in Puerto Rico. We brought in Tyler Samaniego and are excited to get a look at him. And then there's also starting pitching depth, and we'll figure out over the course of the next month and a half or so who, if anyone, might contribute out of the pen from that group.
How do you see Crawford and Sandoval at this point? Obviously, both rehabbing in a way, but fully healthy and kind of on the outside looking in. If you were to project, as of now, knowing things change, the rotation.
Yeah, if I've learned anything in a short amount of time, it's talking about what your rotation might look like before anyone has thrown a spring training game pitch. I think that would be foolish. Most importantly, both Cutter and Patrick are making a ton of progress. Off the mound regularly, facing hitters soon, and we'll evaluate. It's been a while since they've been in games, and we need to make sure that we bring them along, in a way that makes sense.
In a hypothetical, could you see either of them being effective bullpen guys?
I think they're both capable of being effective bullpen guys because they've been very effective major league starters. But again, I think premature to label either as such.
Built the roster, obviously talked a lot about versatility with so many different guys and the number of guys you've brought in. Is there something to having too much versatility and maybe guys not having set roles so much, and also adding something else to Cora's plate in terms of figuring out playing time for so many people in terms of all these rotating roles?
Well, I think Alex is masterful at using the entirety of a roster. I think he's at his best when there's flexibility, when he can find the right matchups for players, and he's such a strong communicator that everyone understands the way that they fit in to the bigger picture. And so I suppose there's the possibility that too much optionality can be difficult to manage, but I don't see that being an issue with Alex.
And I know last year, maybe as an example with like Rafaela wanting him to stay in like center, and you guys have talked about Campbell kind of trying to get him one position versus giving him too much. For the players themselves, do you feel like the guys you have can lean into that versatility, or do you feel like it's more of an individual thing where certain guys would be better at one spot versus kind of rotating more often?
I think that's something that comes out through communication with the players. We saw IKF talk yesterday about really leaning into this role of being a utility guy and someone who can help out in multiple positions, and he's learned how to thrive in that role. And with Sedan, I think the stability did help him. So we have to be mindful of both sides of that.
We talked to you in the media aftermath of the Durbin deal the other day. Since then, have you guys decided or figured out if he's going to work at both second and third during camp, or if you're going to have him focus on one or the other, or how that's evolved in the last 48 hours?
Yeah, those conversations are ongoing. I think most important is getting Caleb here, getting to know him and have the chance to sit down and talk. We talked briefly, just that a conversation would be forthcoming around, where he's comfortable with and how important stability is or isn't to him. But we'll use the next couple of weeks to evaluate that, and Alex and Ramon and Flo and the rest of the coaching staff will be able to watch firsthand, and we'll make a decision on what's best from there.
Do you think it's more likely than not this is the position group that you have going into the season?
I don't know. I can say that we're confident in the group. We like the way that the pieces fit together, but if there's an opportunity to continue to improve, we're not going to ignore that.
But, you talk about the pieces fit together. Obviously, the outfield surplus is part of that piece. But as Alex said, it's just we'll ride it out and see what happens, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the question about flexibility and its value. And it's important to have a manager who I think thrives and can take advantage of that flexibility to identify matchups, whether those are a starting lineup every day or opportunities to pinch hit, bring in somebody off the bench. Alex does such a good job with that I think we need to appreciate how valuable having those different options can be.
You talked about pivoting from, maybe looking for more slug to more of a run prevention approach to roster building. Yet, a lot of data would suggest that you particularly need power in the postseason, right? When you're facing quality pitching, it's easier to get a hold of one and hit a 3-run homer than it is to string together 5 hits against a quality pitching staff. Is it possible that this is a team better built for the long haul than it is if you get back to October?
I'm not sure there's a clear answer, because while we do think that this is a team that will show up for 162 games, and defense and base running and starting pitching tends to keep you in games over the long haul, I would also argue that our starting rotation, the back end of our bullpen, will match up with anybody going into a postseason series. Again, our goal is to win as many games as we can over the season, get into the postseason, and then if we're going to run Garrett Crochet out there in game 1 of a postseason, we saw it last year, we'll take our chances.
When you're looking for power, like Sean's mentioned slug, and you have a surplus, do you find the demands from your competition get a little more outrageous because they know what you need, and they want more, guys?
I don't know if outrageous is the word that I would use, but I think baseball is incredibly competitive. There are very smart front offices who are largely all looking at the same information and valuing players fairly similarly, which can make it hard to line up in trades. At the same time, we've got talented players that are of interest to other teams, and so we obviously had a bunch of conversations throughout the offseason. We were able to get the Durbin trade over the line a couple of days ago. But I don't know that any team goes into a conversation thinking, let me be outrageous. They're just thinking about how they value players and how another player might fit onto the roster.
Big picture, how have you changed since you took over the job?
Got more gray hair. I think what I have learned over the last couple of years is the need to adapt, to evolve, to be ready for multiple scenarios and to have contingencies. If you kind of go out set on one path and one outcome, this industry is just too competitive to think that that's the way to be successful.
The kind of surgery Tanner had, would that allow him to be part of the mix at the end of the season or in the summer?
We'll see. My guess is if you asked Tanner, he would tell you that his goal is to be back tomorrow. That's probably unrealistic, but don't want to put a time. I just feel like when we're talking about something that is so far out in the future, it's unfair to put a timeline on it.
Coming into a new year, what is the biggest question you have about this team?
I think at this point, all 30 teams are thinking about the health of their players. Thinking about how we can get the most out of our group and thinking about the depth, knowing that, we'll take 26 guys on opening day, but beyond that, we're going to need much more contribution. But for a team that we think is going to be built on starting pitching and defense, and run prevention, keeping our rotation healthy is going to be pretty important.
You said a couple times over the offseason that your offseason maneuverings was about 2026 and prioritizing wins this year, and a few years down the line, so be it, deal with that then. Is this year a World Series title or bust sort of year for the Red Sox?
Well, I'm not so sure that I said so be it then, but I
paraphrasing.
definitely did talk about the importance of 2026 and taking a step forward based on just kind of the trajectory from 24 to 25 and now from 25 to 26. So, we have ambitious goals. And I think the fan base in Boston rightfully demands that the Red Sox are kind of World Series or bust teams. But we're a super competitive front office, a very competitive coaching staff and player group. So that's where we've got our sights set every year.
When you mention run prevention, are you talking about pitching or defense?
Both.
Well, defense hasn't been the calling card for this team I know you have Gold Glove outfielders, but how is that better?
How is our defense better?
Yeah.
Well, we think we have both versatility and quality defenders, and options at all positions. We improved our defense, not enough, but we improved it from 24 to 25, and we need to take another step from 25 to 26.
This is typically a time of year where you have a little bit of runway for extensions for like 0 to 3 guys. You've done some. Would you anticipate more of that this spring, whether you get them done or not, at least approaching people and trying to lock some guys up into the future?
Yeah, we're always thinking about trying to identify those kind of cornerstone pieces and preserve them for as long as possible. We'll see if anything is able to get over the line, but it's always something that's part of our strategy for building a sustainable winning organization.
I mean, you have a number of guys who's, because of the CBT calculations, make your CBT number much higher than your actual cash payroll, right? Is there a point where too many extensions start to tilt the wrong way, where you have an even greater discrepancy between your CBT total and what you're actually paying out, and could that influence whether you extend some guys?
I think we have to look at each of those in isolation. If there are extensions that make sense, if there are players that we think we want to keep around for a really long time, and there's something that is fair for the player and fair for the organization, then it's something that we should do. And kind of the disparity that you're talking about, it's something that we'll have to figure out.
When you're going into an off season before the CBA expires, how much do you have to kind of factor in the unknown of what's going to happen next year when you're trying to construct a roster both for short-term and long-term success?
Sure. I think that kind of goes back to the question of the value that we're placing on 2026, which is to say, we feel like based on where we were and where we are today, 2026 is a really important season for us, for our fans. They deserve kind of more, and that's what our focus has been, leaving out whatever uncertainty may exist in 2027 and beyond.
How do you look at Marcelo and kind of his role in the team, just kind of heading into the season?
Yeah, number one, healthy, right? Making sure he's healthy and stays healthy. He looks good. He's a little bit bigger and stronger. He's moving well. We feel very confident that he's going to be a good defender wherever he's playing, and so we'll figure out kind of where we want to get those reps. But he's got a chance to come into camp and compete and show us what he's capable of doing. We've had a lot of excitement around him for a long time, and looking forward for that to come out in his play.
What's your level of concern with Romy?
Anytime there's a player who's still feeling discomfort, it's concerning. But my understanding is that this isn't necessarily the type of thing with long-term implications. But trust our medical staff to manage this the best that they can, and obviously we'll get a lot more information as the next kind of weeks go through.
Breslow expressed a preference last month for working at one position. He'd been doing a lot of second, a lot of third over the offseason, and talked about the differences between them, and it's kind of hard to bounce back and forth between them. Would you like to give him one to focus on at any point? Camp or otherwise?
Again, I keep saying this, but we'll work backwards from what is best for the team and what is best for each individual, and you hope that those things overlap. But Marcelo has also been pretty outspoken about his willingness to do whatever is needed, whatever is best for the team. If that's playing one position, if that's moving around, if that's him learning a new position, I think he's looking for a way to contribute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
You got it.